Picture living under perpetual cameras, each step you take analyzed by millions of people, and having a private battle nobody notices. That was Christine Brown Woolley's life, each and every day. Christine Brown Woolley has never been shy about the spotlight. As a member of Sister Wives, her life is anything but typical. Millions of fans tune in weekly to see dinner time with the family, special occasions, and the triumphs and tribulations of polygamous life. Viewers may catch glimpses of the smiling and laughter on television, but the picture behind the camera is decidedly more complicated. Christine grew up knowing family and faith, having a strong moral compass and a wish to care for those in her life. She's a wife, a mom, and a caregiver in a big blended family. But even someone as practical and family-focused as Christine isn't immune to the stresses of life. Constant scrutiny blows stress out of proportion. Every choice, every mistake, every moment of weakness is observed, spoken about, and sometimes judged. Even the most solid facades hide wars no one sees. Christine's smile concealed a fight that started softly, but it would become louder than anyone could have dreamed. The addiction started after an injury that needed medical treatment. Like most Americans, Christine was prescribed oxycodone, a typical pain reliever. At first, it was easy. Take the drug as directed, heal the body and forget. But oxycodone, as with many prescription opioids, has a secret side. It's extremely potent for pain, but it also has the potential to lead to dependence. What starts out as relief can slowly turn into a chain that is difficult to end. For Christine, the drug increasingly became a crutch. Pain was normal, but emotional stress, trying to balance home life, keep up appearances on TV, and juggle personal duties, began to bear down. The prescription, which was meant to cure, became a silent specter in her world, a private weight no one who watched the show could possibly know. It begins so softly. One pill to make the pain go away, then another. And soon, what was helping you get better is now controlling you. Living with a polygamous family has its own set of dynamics. Christine is not only in charge of her kids or her own home, she deals with complicated relationships with co-wives, common family spaces, and public opinion. As much as audience members may root for the family's intimacy, behind the scenes there are tensions, arguments, envy, and miscommunications. For Christine, managing her own health while remaining emotionally present to all those around her became draining. Compound that with the pressure of fame. Millions of eyes are on every encounter, scrutinizing every feature. There isn't much space for error or vulnerability, and confessing to an addiction, much less in the reality TV setting, can seem impossible. Christine's case illustrates how addiction is equal opportunity. Your family can be as supportive as you need, your life as successful as it seems, and you can keep it as hidden as you desire. Pain and dependence can strike anyone. Addiction doesn't make a big entrance. It sneaks up quietly, sometimes masquerading as part of everyday life. And Christine's journey was only just starting. Christine began noticing subtle changes in herself. Her energy levels fluctuated. She felt anxious when she didn't take her medication. Simple tasks seemed heavier, and the emotional weight of her family responsibilities felt amplified. She experienced internal conflict, knowing she wanted to be the best mother and wife possible, while simultaneously realizing she was being affected by something beyond her control. This is where the emotional weight comes in. Christine, who had spent her entire life caring for others, knew she needed to care for herself. Admitting that perhaps she was building a dependency was frightening. Would people judge her? What would happen to her family? Would she be able to be the wife and mother she wanted to be? These questions were heavy, and fear of stigma made it even more difficult to seek assistance. The toughest fights are the ones we're not always fighting out loud. Christine's bravery started the day she committed herself to confronting the truth straight on. The breakthrough came not with some sensational public announcement, but with inner self-knowledge. Christine became aware of what the drugs were doing to her life, her body, her mind, her emotions. She saw that although pills temporarily covered up pain, they weren't fixing the actual issues she faced. Healing would take acknowledgement of a problem, professional help, and relying on a support system. It's worth noting that her family was involved. Christine's support system in her home is multifaceted. There are co-wives, kids, and extended family members, all of whom are involved in the atmosphere surrounding her. Christine's path brought back to her family the realization that addiction has nothing to do with morality or personal control. It's a sickness, and treatment involves patience, compassion, and unconditional love. Admitting there is a struggle is not weakness, it's the beginning of strength. Christine's testament is evidence that in the most difficult fights, hope is available. At the conclusion of this initial session, we realize that Christine's struggle with oxycodone was not fame or image related. It was a fight of human fragility. It was a mother, a wife, and a woman in crisis, attempting to regain control of her life. Her struggles remind us that addiction can strike anyone, no matter background, and that recovery starts by admitting there is a problem and getting help. Christine's tale in this initial phase is a blend of silent struggle, terror, and courage. The cameras might have recorded the grins, but the actual fight took place behind closed doors. Her tale is a reminder because it's universal. We've all had our own struggles, we've attempted to conceal, and sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is confess we need assistance. Even the toughest individuals can have silent struggles, and sometimes the greatest act of courage is admitting you need assistance. Christine Brown Woolley's addiction wasn't sudden, it snuck up on her quietly, nearly imperceptibly. The pills were initially used for pain, a fix for a physical problem, but gradually the medication started to subtly creep into everyday life, affecting her moods, energy, and even choices without her even knowing it. What at first was a convenient solution gradually became a quiet, secret struggle. The demands of being on Sister Wives maximized the challenge. Every smile, every conversation, every encounter was televised to an audience of millions. Fans witnessed the perfect family moments, but what cameras did not document were the times of inner struggle Christine felt, feeling stressed out, tired, and held captive by the pressure of family commitment and medication addiction. She began seeing small indications, trouble concentrating on tasks, irritability, or restlessness when she did not take medication, and a creeping feeling that she was no longer entirely in charge. Routine tasks that had once seemed possible, like keeping up with her kids, participating in family activities, or even just being there, felt overwhelming. Sometimes the most difficult battle is not visible to anyone else. Christine's fight was silent, but it was real, and it was intensifying. Admitting the problem was the initial hardest step. Christine had to admit, initially to herself, that she was struggling. Next, she had to face the fact that she needed assistance. Calling for professional help wasn't easy. There's a lot of stigma attached to addiction, especially reality TV personality. Christine realized that exposing her weakness would invite judgment, both from the public and privately. But keeping quiet would only allow the issue to escalate. With determination, she chose to connect. She relied on her family, who became instrumental in carrying her through the initial recovery phases. Their patience, understanding, and love formed a foundation for her to meet the subsequent challenges. This was not merely a detox from a drug. It was about rebuilding routines, trust, and emotional strength. Admitting that you're struggling doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And Christine's courage opened the door to healing. Christine's path to recovery had several dimensions. She was treated by physicians and therapists to deal with her physical addiction safely, making it possible for withdrawal symptoms to be dealt with under protection and guidance. Medical treatment, however, was not sufficient. Real recovery meant dealing with the emotional and psychological patterns that had enabled the dependency to take root. She saw counselors, sometimes emotionally draining, and learned how to handle stress without the medication. She also exercised open communication with her family. This was likely one of the toughest aspects, being frank about the challenges involved, admitting errors, fears, and weaknesses. It meant demonstrating to her children and co-wives that even someone as capable as Christine might need assistance, and that asking for help is an act of courage and necessity. Recovery isn't a straight path. Christine's journey reminds us that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, persistent, and relentless. Along the way, Christian taught herself to reconstruct her life in small, intentional ways. She established new daily habits that didn't involve medication. She prioritized mental health, integrating habits such as mindful contemplation, gentle exercise, and family bonding. Incrementally, she began to feel improvements, heightened concentration, emotional lucidity, and a restored sense of agency over her own life. What is most striking about Christine's experience is the strength of family support. In a family with several co-wives and children, things can be complicated, but her family was a steady source of support. They gave understanding instead of judgment, patience instead of pressure, so that Christine could recover in her own time. Happiest battles are often fought behind closed doors. Christine's journey is testament to the fact that through love, patience, and courage, even the secret struggles can be conquered. Recovery also taught Christine the value of compassion towards herself. She needed to forgive herself for the times when the medication dictated her life and recognize that addiction does not determine her value. By substituting guilt with action, going to therapy, relying on her support system, and learning to take care of herself, she could begin to reclaim her life step by step. As Christine's story unfolds, it becomes clear that addiction isn't a moral failing or a weakness. It's a challenge that can affect anyone, regardless of fame, family support, or life circumstances. Her journey is relatable for viewers of any age, especially those who may have faced or are facing their own struggles with health, stress, or emotional pressures. Christine's bravery teaches us one thing: the beginning of healing is acknowledging there's something wrong, and the second step is never giving up, even when it seems impossible. At the conclusion of this session, we find Christine at a turning point. She has admitted to her addiction, sought help, and begun the slow, difficult road of recovery. She isn't cured yet, but she has regained control of her life in ways she couldn't have dreamed just a few months before. The small victories, surviving a day without dependency on medicine, being truthful with her family, recovering little pockets of peace, start to pile up, laying the groundwork for sustained healing. This stage of Christine's journey is powerful because it shows that healing is possible even when the struggle feels overwhelming. It's a reminder that no one is alone in facing life's challenges, and that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a step toward strength, hope, and a brighter future. There comes a moment when life says enough, and Christine knew she couldn't let the addiction win. Christine Brown Woolley had come to a breaking point. The internal struggle that had been going on for months, often unseen, sometimes masked by smiles, had begun to spill over into more than just daily life. She could sense the fear in her kids' eyes. She could feel the anxiety of her husband Kody, and she started to realize the effect it was having on her own body, her stamina, her focus, and even her sense of identity. This turning point was both personal and deep. It was the instant when Christine knew that the pills she once depended upon for comfort and relief from pain were not working anymore. They were running her life. It was not about physical addiction anymore, but about emotional freedom, family security, and her future. She understood that if she didn't get things right, the life she so dearly cherished could be lost. Sometimes it takes hitting a wall to find the strength to climb again. Christine had reached that wall and she refused to fall. Christine understood that recovery would require total commitment. There could be no shortcuts, no excuses, no half measures. She had to confront the addiction fully, embrace the process of healing, and take control of her life in a way that was honest and courageous. One of the major lessons during this period was how to rely on her support system. Her children and her husband Kody became pillars. They did not shame and judge her. They urged her to build wellness, not guilt. Their support gave Christine the emotional backbone to tackle the toughest days of recovery. Routines were a daily necessity. No longer were morning times rushed and disheveled, but were now organized to assist her in her mental and physical well-being. Exercise, mindfulness, and regular self-care were incorporated into her routine. Counseling sessions were a haven for examining her emotions, facing triggers, and gaining new coping skills. Being accountable to herself and her family made Christine stick to her recovery, even on certain days when temptation or self-doubt had appeared. Each step forward is counted, no matter how steep the road. Christine's journey was a testament that courage is established day by day. However, the road was not a smooth one. There were times of fear, times when Christine doubted whether she could make it. Relapse was always a threatening possibility, and the emotional burden of previous dependency at times was overwhelming. But whenever she fell, she recalled why she began. She thought of her children, who needed a gift and healthy mother. She thought of her husband, whose love gave her strength instead of judgment. And she thought of herself, the Christine who longed for a life without the shadows of addiction, full of clarity, energy, and hope. Recovery also meant facing hard reality. She considered the conditions under which her addiction had taken hold to begin with, the urgency of family life, the stakes of reality television, and her inherent people-pleasing nature. Owning up without guilt enabled her to leave the past behind with purpose instead of recrimination. Healing is seldom a linear journey. Christine's breakthrough taught her that persistence is more important than perfection. At this point in time, Christine's day-to-day life was changed. She began to incorporate healthy habits that substituted the oxycodone dependence. Meditation and journaling assisted in managing stress. Supper times became opportunities for bonding instead of habitual obligation. Exercise was no longer only about body health. It was taking back possession of her mind and body. She also embraced therapy in a profound, unbroken manner. This wasn't casual advice. It was a dedication to learning why she was dependent and gaining techniques to keep from relapsing. Cognitive methods, emotional work, and self-examination became her instrument. Every session provided wisdom, tactics, and moments of understanding. With repetition, these instruments became second nature, guiding Christine through triggers and keeping her on track with recovery. Sometimes the greatest bravery is just to persevere. Christine's determination illustrated that hope may be discovered even in darkest conditions. Christine's support system was important in ensuring her success. Her children were taught to identify signs of struggle and motivated her with patience and love. Kody was with her as an emotional anchor, reminding her that she was never along the way. Together they built a safe space where honesty was promoted and mistakes were corrected, with understanding and not criticism. It was here that Christine started to regain her sense of self. She had felt lost in herself because of addiction, but with the help of family and professional therapy she started to remember who she was away from the pills. She could join a conversation without hesitation, laugh uncontrollably with her children, and have moments that were once shadowed by stress and dependence. Recovery isn't about never falling. It's about getting up each time you do. Christine's breakthrough was her first true triumph over the grip of addiction. As the weeks and months went by, Christine saw real change. Her energy came back, her concentration improved, and her emotional stability increased. The relief and sense of accomplishment was profound. But she knew too that recovery was not something that was it was a continuum. The breakthrough wasn't the end. It was a beginning. It was a statement that she was not going to let addiction rule her, and that she could intentionally design her future. By confronting the addiction, Christine not only protected her own health but also reinforced her relation. Her children watched a mother devoted to healing, a wife working in partnership with her husband, and a woman taking back her life step by step. Her regained trust and respect within her family provided a boost of pride and motivation, and served to reinforce her determination to continue on the path with attention and dignity. This moment of change is a strong message to audiences. Occasionally, the instant requiring transformation arises out of seeing the effect of what we do on the people who matter most to us. And this challenge to seize demands courage and humility. Christine's tale points out that even when the situations around us seem daunting, a blend of self-reflection, expert advice, and support from loved ones can bring about extensive change. Recovery is not a destination, it's a journey. And Christine's journey encourages anyone waging their own battle. Christine Brown Woolley had come to an incredible point in her life. Following months of perseverance, introspection, and each day's effort towards healing, she started reclaiming her life from the clutches of addiction. This was not an overnight change. It was the outcome of tireless effort, perseverance, and an immovable resolve to mend for herself and her family. In the initial phases of recovery, Christine observed subtle changes that filled her with hope. She was more energized upon waking, her mind clearer, and she felt truly present with her children and family. The simple moments of every day, which she had probably taken for granted in the past, now held purpose. Cooking, sharing laughter, or even conversations seemed restorative and grounding. These little triumphs were milestones, reminders of how strong she had become in fighting off troubles that had once appeared overwhelming. Every small victory is a step forward. Christine's life slowly shifted from surviving to truly living. As Christine regained control of her life, she also relearned her hobbies and personal interests. Those things that made her happy prior to addiction filled her days once more: time outdoors, creative endeavors, and quiet reflection. These pursuits were not mere diversions, they were mechanisms for healing the mind and heart, strengthening her sense of identity and independence. Being on Sister Wives also taught Christine the power of sharing her story. By being frank about her demons and successes, she became an inspiration to others. She demonstrated that addiction is not a matter of moral weakness or failure, but a medical and emotional affliction that one can overcome through courage, support, and the aid of professionals. Her honesty made it easier to talk about addiction, reminding viewers that anyone can have personal struggles, despite those whose lives at first glance seem perfect. The greatest are not those who never falter, but the ones who rise over and over again. Christine's story shows that strength lies in persistence. Christine's advocacy was not about getting attention from the public. It was about honesty and relating. She spoke with family members, friends, and her public, pointing out that asking for help is a bold move. Her experience inspired others to embrace their struggles, seek support, and accept recovery without fear. Each day's routine continued to be essential to Christine's re-established stability. She exercised mindfulness, continued counseling sessions, and set boundaries that guarded her mental health. These routines functioned as anchors, bringing stability and predictability into a life once unpredictable. Because of the impact of addiction, rebuilding a life takes patience, consistency, and courage. Christine's small daily actions paved the way for a brighter tomorrow. Another vital component of Christine's reclaimed life was the restored family relationships. Her children saw her more fully present. She was attentive, interested, and emotionally available. Her husband Kody saw her growth and commitment, which deepened their relationship. The family dynamics that had been strained by underlying struggles started to flourish in a climate of honesty and encouragement. Christine was also more sensitive to the ripple effect of her healing. By opting to overcome her issues, she was an example for her children since they were learning that personal responsibility, resilience, and self-healing are essential parts of life. Her narrative conveyed that setbacks happen, but dedication to healing and changing can result in meaningful change. Victory isn't always loud. It's the quiet reclaiming of your life, one step at a time. Christine's story reminds us that even the smallest steps matter. Christine's support eventually went beyond her immediate circle. Her vulnerability encouraged sister wives, viewers, and followers of her life story to face their own issues. Addiction, stress, and personal demons are so often shamed, but Christine's example softened the stigma. Individuals observed that recovery is not perfection, but rather persistence, guts, and the willingness to seek help when needed. Christine's life was also enriched on intangible levels. She found renewed self-worth, a clearer sense of purpose, and greater appreciation for ordinary experience, something that could have seemed mundane. Sharing dinner, going to a family party, or having a quiet moment took on remarkable importance. Each recovery day was a witness to her determination and dedication to living a full life. Christine's journey reminds us that the true triumph is taking back your life, not conquering a battle. Her story assures us that hope is always possible. At the conclusion of this session, we observe Christine as a woman who has not just survived but flourished. She has discovered a way of living with resilience, self-insight, and a sense of empowerment. Her experience indicates that recovery is not static, a once-and-done proposition, but rather it is a daily process of choices, habit, and emotional awareness. But it is richly rewarding. Christine Brown Woolley's journey to take back her life is inspiring because it is real, relevant, and inspiring. It demonstrates that despite adversity, with commitment and good support, one can restore, recover, rediscover happiness, and forge a rich, full life. Her journey inspires anyone who sees it, that no matter what challenge comes along, conquering it is always an option. Christine's tale shows us something straightforward but strong. No matter how profound the struggle, hope is never out of reach. Following months of dedication, healing, and self-improvement, Christine Brown Woolley found herself at a point in her life where she could look back on what she had learned. Her path from addiction wasn't about getting over a dependent. It was about courage, self-discovery, and the changing energy of support and honesty. Christine understood that life's struggles, physical, emotional, or psychological, are common to all. Addiction, stress, and inner struggles can happen to anyone, even with fame, wealth, or supportive family. What is important is how we react to the struggles, and Christine's reaction served as a map to healing and hope. Even the worst storms must pass. Christine's experience demonstrates that healing isn't the end, but just the start of a wiser, stronger life. One of the greatest lessons Christine discovers is the importance of seeking assistance. For months, She alone bore her problems, weighed down by fear, shame, and self-doubt. Yet asking for help, whether to her spouse, kids, or physicians, was a turning point. It recalled to mind, and to the observers of her journey, that to ask for help is not frailty, it is courage. Her experience also reminded her of the significance of family and community. Kody, Christine's husband, was steadfast in his encouragement, showing patience and understanding. Her children gave love and encouragement, daily reminding her for whom she struggled. Even co-wives and extended family members got involved, forming a support network that made recovery possible. Recovery is not a lone endeavor. Christine's story is evidence that relying on others doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. Along the way, Christine learned the value of self-compassion. She was able to forgive herself for mistakes and failures, and take care of herself in a way she provided for others. Every day was an opportunity to make intentional decisions that served her well-being, health, and emotional well-being. Christine also accepted the notion that life following recovery revolves around finding joy within day-to-day moments, things she used to take for granted, laughing with her children, sharing meals with her family, hobbies, became metaphors for her reacquired life. These small significant moments reminded her that life is full of beauty and purpose, even through suffering. Healing doesn't just change the person, it is ripples through all relationships. Christine's new presence brought strength to her family relationships. Apart from her own transformation, Christine's journey served as inspiration for others. By sharing openly about her journey, she was able to normalize discussing addiction and recovery. She pushed her audience to acknowledge their issues, reach out for help, and pursue recovery as a process and not a destination. Christine proved that success doesn't count on perfection, but on persistence. She encountered hindrances, fears, and doubts, but each step ahead, no matter how tiny, was a win. Her story shows that even at the bleakest of times, willpower, tolerance, and proper guidance can bring about positive change. Real bravery is demonstrated not by never falling down, but by getting up every time you do fall. Christine's story is a credit to that kind of courage. In hindsight, Christine realized that her own recovery from addiction was a school of empathy as well. She now related to those struggling, having experienced up close the pain, fear, and hope of recovery. This empathy informed her advocacy and outreach, enabling her to engage with viewers and community members in a true and effective manner. Her experience also highlighted the centrality of hope as a motivating force. Recovery is a process, and setbacks are always possible. But through keeping growth as a focus, being held accountable, and developing resilience, Christine demonstrated that hope is not theoretical. It is practical, contained in everyday decisions, and seen in progress, however incremental. Christine's life reminds us that even after the toughest fights, life can be one of purpose, happiness, and hope. Her life is evidence that no struggle is ever permanent. As this episode comes to a close, Christine is a woman of courage and resilience. She has recovered her health, restored her relationships, and adopted a life of connection and purpose. Her narrative speaks powerfully to viewers of all ages, but especially for the over 50 age group, who might identify with the all-too-human realities of adversity, determination, and family love. Christine's messages are straightforward yet deep. Challenging admission is the beginning of change. Reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Recovery is a process, not a place. Loved ones can provide invaluable support. Small successes mount to enduring change. Hope and resilience are never out of reach. By her experience, Christine Brown Woolley educates the audience that even though individual struggles exist, they can be overcome. By embracing awareness, empathy, and support, she shows that it is possible for anyone to take back their life, regain happiness, and encourage others in the process. Her tale brings the series to a close, not with a conclusion, but with an ongoing pilgrimage of hope, demonstrating that even in life's most public existence, there are private battles that can be conquered, and victory is possible through devotion, love, and bravery.